community hosted by users of AWS. So for me, I'm not an official AWS staff. I'm not from AWS, so I'm just an AWS user. And since you are here at AWS office, yes, we are sponsored by AWS, but really not held by them. So we are free to talk about anything about AWS, good or not. We are not obligated to sell you anything. So we are just here to share what we have or what we have experienced in on AWS platform. So we are a Hong Kong chapter. So you can imagine that in other cities or countries, they have different user group. They have like user group Tokyo, user group Osaka, or even in some city, they have some more specific topic user group. Maybe they have a Tokyo networking, Tokyo security user group. But in Hong Kong, since we are a small city, so we only have one user group here. And we regularly held last Friday of each month. So that's why you're here in this Friday night. So you can expect that our next event will be on next month, the last Friday of next month. Except on December, because in December we have a so-called like a year-end roundup, and then we will have some recap of the biggest event of AWS in Las Vegas. We will have a summary there, so we will have a slightly special arrangement in December. And our objective is to gather the tech community. So since AWS is the largest cloud provider, I think most of the tech people in Hong Kong, they have experience in AWS. So every one of you here should be an AWS user. So you are welcome to join us. And we are actually an English meetup mostly. Since we have started this regular meetup since last year, all our meetups are conducted in English. So you don't really need to consider, if the next meetup is in Cantonese, should I come? Feel free to come. We always using English. So again, let me introduce myself again. I'm Alex. I'm the leader of this meetup user group Hong Kong, and I'm also the AWS community hero. Because I'm not an AWS staff, myself is I'm a software developer. So don't confuse anything. Don't ask me anything about like AWS billing, AWS credit. I don't have any information on those. And we also have two AWS staff to support us, Amy and Clifford. They are not here today. And we have Richard. He's AWS security hero, and we worked together on these user groups since last year. We also have Eddie. He's not running yet. And Haley and Fred, so I guess they will be coming soon. Since we are sponsored by AWS, so we have some sponsorship message. Maybe starting. AWS right now is hosting a build games with Amazon QCLI. And if you have successfully built any games with QCLI and then post a blog or take a videos, you are eligible to win a t-shirt. And doing this is super quick. For myself, I like spending like 1 or 2 hours to complete a game, and I can see other users also using similar time to do this. So they have extended the deadline to the 30th of this month. Seems like time is limited, but just install QCLI and do some code. You can finish this task in just one evening. So you can redeem your free t-shirt, free shipping. And so I think that's all of the promotion and introduction part. So today we have 2 sessions, and I will pass the session to the first speaker, Siddharth from Acumetrics, to talk about GenAI. So I will pass the time to Siddharth.
Thank you. Give me 1 minute just to connect my laptop. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone for coming at this hour. I really apologize from the bottom of my heart that you have to be here on a Friday evening at 6:30. So I just did a quick run around, and I just wanted to know about your background so I can make the session most interesting for everyone, and I'm going to try doing that. So just to give you a quick background about myself, just give me 1 minute. It's not. Okay, so You might have seen me around, or if not, I've been doing a lot of events, but just to give a background, I have around 14 years of work experience working in different industries. I'm working as the head of data and AI right now. I used to work with Google before, back in India. I moved to Hong Kong around 6 years ago. AWS has been close to my heart as well. We built the partnership around 3 years ago with AWS as a company. You can see my pictures right outside. You still have this logo of always day one. And I also have some AWS certification. In all, I have over 21 cloud certifications, but something which is relevant for me. I think it's quite interesting. You should also give it a go. So, very quick introduction about my company. It's a 18 years old company based globally. We have around 500 data experts. Mostly on building AI and data solutions. So we help a lot of customers, luxury brands, finance, insurance, almost all industries in building AI solutions. And that's our key role. I won't spend too much time on this, but feel free to chat with me around. My key focus today will be about AI. And I think you might have seen news. I have highlighted or I think masked some of the information. I don't want to take names, but every day you see some news about AI. AI is blooming. They say you can talk to your data, you can do this, you can do that, and that's actually possible. Everyone is looking right now. I think you're using ChatGPT or you're using POE.com, which is nearly free, or DeepSeek. But now things are moving towards talking to your data. Like if you can build chatbots which can really help you to talk to your data. And what I'm going to cover today is I'm going to show you some of the best practices and examples of how you can leverage what is available online versus how you can build your own solutions. And to build your own solutions, what do you need? What do you need to take care of? What are the best practices you need to do? And what are the do's and don'ts? Because as you know, every day there's a new model coming up. There is something new coming up. What to see in a model, how to identify a model, what is AI agent. So I'm going to talk a bit around that. Something very classic, most of you have come across Power BI dashboards, Excel dashboards, or some charts, so that exists. Now they are taking it to the next level with the possibility, what if you could talk to your data? And it's happening in what Alex just showed. You have AWS Q, which is also like a data assistant. So you just, you don't even have to build dashboards in the future. You just talk to your data, like how are my financial goals doing? You'll get a quick response. You can get a table, you can even get visualization. So that's all available. In AWS, you have Q data assistants. In Databricks, you have Genie. Similar tools are available with other clouds as well. And I just want to give you a quick demo of what we recently built for one of our clients. And in the demo, we'll show some of the features that we did for them. And probably I'm going to talk about how to build those features using native services. So for one of our customers, they were using actually a platform which was, they had a team of people who would manually read documents, and they would build a database that could answer questions. So they wanted to have a chatbot linked to a geographic heat map. So normally you have the whole world map, and it's basically for plastic waste. So it's for an NGO that we built. They wanted a chatbot, but they also wanted it to be a bit more interactive, that users could just point to one of the location and they get the information, they get the numbers, etc. So in the chatbot, you can of course talk to your data, get all the information, etc. But it's a bit more interactive than that. I won't go into all the demo, but just to give you some of the highlights. When you talk to the data, you can get information about what are the KPIs or what is the plastic waste happening. You get linked to the PDF documents. So most of this information is basically coming from the PDFs that are generated by government, by countries on their plastic waste. Now a lot is going about sustainability. And then we kind of extracted all those information from documents. I think that's one of the most common use cases you have with chatbots. You have PDF documents, you want to extract information. So I'm going to teach you a bit about how to extract those information. And then you can take your chatbots to next level. You can build visualizations, you can build charts directly into your chatbot. So what we did, we uploaded kind of 10,000 documents, and we wrote some algorithm with LLM AI agents, which we're going to show in the next phase. So we built the extraction mechanism from these documents, and you can upload new documents. So not going into all the functionality again. And then you can have your custom visuals, custom dashboards as well. Just something around. But the best part was around data quality, what I want to show. So when you extract information, you can also give, based on business rule, what's the quality of your extraction. You can identify and you can build multiple mechanisms. I'm going to share in the upcoming slides like how those mechanisms look like. But you can actually give a score, so you trust your LLMs that, okay, whatever is extracted is fully correct, or whatever is not extracted, you have a lower percentage. So that was for the demo. I'll quickly jump to the next slide to go into the next phase. Most of the time when we are working with clients, so my job is to work with almost all the AI teams or all the business teams from different clients, be it luxury banks, finance, etc. They're all building POCs, but none of the POCs actually go to production. And the biggest challenge is, one, their data is incorrect, or they don't know how to handle the data. They don't know what kind of models to use. Every day you hear there's a new model, there is Microsoft model, there is open source model, etc. You have no idea. But there's a lot of challenges, but today we'll try to tackle some of the challenges. And I hope at the end of the session you'll be aware of how to pick the right model and how to train your models and how to evaluate your models. So quickly, to give you a background, not everyone might be from the AI background, so I wanted to touch this topic a bit so you actually know how these models actually work. Every day you see there is OpenAI model, there is Meta model, there is Llama model. How do they train the data? They have information about a lot of stuff. How is it actually trained? So they train basically on a large variety of data sets. Some of them actually share what kind of data they are using to train the models. Most of them will not share with you, and that's the biggest problem. But what you can do is, if you want to train your own models, you can also do web scraping. Some of you might know that all the information that is available on the internet, you can kind of extract it. And if you extract it, you can use those information to basically train your models. And that's one of the things. So there are 2.7 billion web pages which you can kind of web scrape and today build your own model practically by training it. But you need a lot of compute resources, you need massive machine power to actually do the training, which is kind of not possible. So there's a lot of steps. I won't go into the detail of everyone, but you need to extract the text, you need to do language evaluation, and then you need to do some filtering, you need to remove PII. There's so much information about a particular person, but the LLM has to be a bit more ethical. So after you extract the information, what's the next step? And I think you might hear a lot about tokenization if you use models, and I wanted to give you a concept of how it actually works. So normally if you pick a model, they have a limit saying this model has only this much token limit. So what is actually a token limit? So if you look at the right side, normally whenever you use models, there is different types of tokenization. First is like your raw sentence, which is chatbots are helpful. Now if I have to tokenize it, there are different methods. One is word tokenization, which is you pick up each word and you kind of separate it. You say, okay, chatbot is one token, R is another token, helpful is another token. And then there is character tokenization, where you separate each character and maintain it in your, I'm going to talk about where you store it, but you can store it somewhere. And then the third one is subword tokenization, where you can even break the words. If you have longer words, you can kind of break them and you can store them. So storing is another mechanism. But just for everyone's reference, whenever you pass an English sentence to any chatbot or any of the assistant, they are kind of converted into tokens, and tokens are assigned a numeric score. We're going to share in the upcoming slide. So that numeric score is used for mapping to the correct answer. So you get an answer based on the biggest proximity or the closest proximity to that numeric score. So it might be a bit more technical or a bit more based on how it works, but I wanted to give you a bit background. Everyone talks about model, but no one touches these topics. So all this, I would say, evaluation, like what answer you get from a chatbot, is based on neural networks. Neural networks, if you might have heard it, it's an AI term, it's a data science term that used to exist in the long term. It's how also your brain operates. So when I said all the tokens get converted into a numeric term, what happens is you get probability for different data that exists in your database. When you say, okay, ChatGPT is a model, you kind of train your data on so much information from the internet. it kind of creates a numeric interpretation of every word that is stored. And then you have probabilities that you see on the right side. So the correct answer that you get, or the most relevant answer that you received, is based on the probability in the backend. I won't go into all the technical details, but I wanted you to know. So if in your college you would have studied about electrical science, or if it was in one of your computer courses for system designs, there is a concept of transformer architecture. So all the answers that you get from a chatbot are normally based on the transformer architecture. Not going again into all the details, but that's something you need to know. If you work with models, they have a context window. When you talk about different type of models, if you read about, okay, if today you want to go back and use any model, you will have to pick up a model with a context window. So if you see there is a context window of 8K, 128K, what is that is basically how much data or how much tokens, which I showed before, it can store. So that's kind of the context window. I'll share a bit more about it. So if you see, foundation models are something that you kind of find in the market. It's available, you can use, but they are all linked to the range that they have in the context. If you pick a bigger context window, they will have access to more keywords that they can store in one go, and that's how much keywords you can write in a single prompt. We're going to talk about prompt in a bit, but it's a bit more technical concept. But if you see, the first one is a single prompt, single token that is shared, but in the second one you have multiple tokens that you can share. So it's all the context of different queries that you do against your agent. You don't have to go into all the details, but I just wanted to give you insights of how it works in the background. So when we talk about any kind of model that's available in the market right now, you might not see all the details, but normally you talk about Llama model or any model, they have some information at the end. So they say Llama -3.1 -70 million. That's the total number of data it has been trained on. And the last part is interesting. You might see it or not see it. It's called instruct. So normally the models are of two types. One is conversational. You can just have a single conversation. The second one is where you can give it instructions. So if you give it instructions, it can do logical reasoning based on that instructions. If you see on the right side, it's just simple conversation with an assistant. It will give you an answer, but it will not have a thinking of its own. And this is interesting. If you say instructions, the model will actually be able to think on its own, do reasoning, have the ability to reason. So again, not going to spend a lot of time, but just wanted to give you a high-level overview of what it is. DeepSeek, when it came, it became so powerful because it had the possibility to have those instruction or the reasoning capabilities. So if you go to chat.deepseek.com, if you type a question, you will see the reasoning logic, what it does. So it's just a website, it's free, you can use instead of ChatGPT for China region or Hong Kong region. And if you ask a question about anything, you will see the steps of reasoning, it's thinking. You will see a keyword at the top saying thinking, and then you'll see all the steps that he's doing to think. If you ask anything, he will try to understand your question, it will try to reflect a bit. So that's the difference between conversational and thinking models. And the last part, which is most interesting, it's a bit costly, but again, for very large-scale production-based application, you have something called having the feedback, human feedback in your reinforcement learning. So what it is basically, if I train a model and it doesn't give a good reward, it's like how you treat your kids. If your kid is nice to you, you will give them a reward. If they are not nice to you, you will kind of punish them. So reinforcement model kind of works something like that. If the model performs good, you give it a nice reward, and it learns to perform it in the same way. But most of the time, you don't know how to automate that kind of manual testing. I'm going to show you an example where when you have chatbots, sometimes at the end you see a thumbs up sign or a thumbs down sign. So you can actually give a feedback to the model, that, okay, I like the response or I didn't like the response. If you give a positive feedback, it takes it, it knows that, okay, what I answered is correct. And if you give a negative response, it will not answer in that way. So tomorrow, if you are building your own solutions, it's always better to have that human feedback loop. If you provide a response from your chatbot or anything, you can have a thumbs up, thumb down, or a score saying out of 10, how much would you score this response? Based on the response, you can kind of retrain your model. Just to tell you a bit more, models cannot do maths, so they are very bad at math. They fail at simple arithmetic logics. Models are also not good at spellings. Not sure if you like, but they might not be that good. They have inconsistency in the output. If you're going to ask the same question and again, it might give you inconsistent results, and that's quite common because they don't really understand the concept. They just see what they have and they'll respond. They can also give you false information because they not know whole context, and there might be contextual ambiguity. Like if I ask 9.11 or 9.9, which is bigger, they might not really know that okay, is it decimal or is it just numbers they're talking about. So LLM can never be 100% accurate, and we're going to teach you some mechanism of how to make it a bit more accurate. So a bit on building GenAI solutions now. So I have a bit more to cover, so feel free to stop me anytime and ask more questions. I'm happy to share more details. So now, this is something useful for everyone, even if you're building AI solutions or not. You might be using ChatGPT or any of the, I would say, open source tools, DeepSeek or POE.com, where you ask questions and you get help from ChatGPT to do your operational day-to-day tasks. So just to help you better, and this is what we do in model training as well, we give a lot of prompts when you build your agents. So how to actually write prompts. Normally you would just say, tell me about this, I want to know about something. So if you write a better prompt, you will get a better answer. So you can make it a bit more informative, like on the first side you see, give precise information, like why do you need, what do you need, like I need a summarized information in 3 to 4 sentences, etc. Avoid minor details, etc. So that's one. Second, you can define a role. That if you are working in the marketing team, you can say, I'm working with the marketing team, I need information. The response would be much, much better. And then third one is structuring the prompt. Normally, if after today's event you want to make a LinkedIn post, you can say, I want to make a LinkedIn post, add emojis, make it more exciting, make it conversational, make it first person. The response would be much better. And the fourth one is specifying output format. If you know how the output should look like, you can always give an example. So these are the best practices in writing prompts. Normally, if I'll show you when you build GenAI applications or agents, you normally give a prompt to make it better, to give it better responses. And these are some of the ways where you can make it much, much more better. So just few names that you might hear about prompting if you read about it on the internet. There is something called zero-shot prompting, which is you just ask a question and it gives you a response. Second is few-shot prompting, which is you give some examples. You say, okay, these are my examples. Understand them and answer accordingly. So that's also called few-shot prompting. It's better for complex tasks. And what is interesting and is very, very useful is called chain of thoughts. And you might read about it, and it's very nice actually. So if I give you the first example on the left side, I gave in my prompt one question and one answer. The answer was, okay, the answer is 11. And then I asked a second question, but the model did not respond correctly. It gave an incorrect answer. As I said, models are not really good at math. So if you try to give some logical reasoning question, it will always give an incorrect response, unless they are trained very well. But in the second option, you have a prompt, which is called chain of thought. So you are giving it an example that how it needs to logically answer the question. So if you see, compare the answer, I'll not go into the question, but in the first example, I just said the answer is 11. But in the second one, I asked it to understand what the solution is. So I said, Roger started with 5 balls, 2 cans of tennis balls, and then each of them with 6 balls. So 5 plus 6 is 11, the answer is 11. So when I asked the next question, the model tried to kind of understand, okay, I have to do step by step rather than just giving an answer. So it did step by step and it got the, kind of the right answer. So this concept is called chain of thoughts. So you are kind of asking it to build some logic, do step by step and give a response.
I have a question.
Yes.
Because earlier you mentioned like two type of LLM, like you have like the thinking LLM and the conversational one.
Yes.
So does the thinking and conversational one replicate the same one?
Yes. So this is how you prompt. So this is what I said is you're giving it some examples. If you don't give examples, you just ask some questions. If I said in the first one, you just ask something like that, It won't give you the correct answer.
But what I mean is like the thinking LLM model will be able to think by itself to give the proper answer.
So the thinking model, no, you have to give instructions of how you want. Yes. But if you try to ask, say for conversational, I'm going to talk about it in the coming slides. So thinking model, as I said, DeepSeek. Now they are training them in a better way. So when they do logical thinking, you will get the right answer, but it might be 100% correct because they are not 100% correct in maths. So if you give an example like this, which is it's a concept called chain of thoughts. So you're actually telling it how you want it to think. You're telling him, I want you to think in a particular way. Again, there is something called complex prompting and simple prompting, something you should take note of. If you know what to tell your chatbot, you can either write in a very long paragraph or you can say step by step. You can use JSON or any other coding language, or even you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it will actually know very clearly what are the instructions. So try to make as simple prompts as possible. Okay, going back to the example I showed, I think if you have to build a chatbot, the only concept or the most interesting or the most valuable concept is RAG. It's called Retrieval Augment Generation. I'm going to share a bit of how it works. So basically, you normally upload documents or you ask it to read from the website, or you give it some information in a paragraph or something for it to read. What it does is, if I go to step 1, your information could be very long. It kind of creates and segregates them into chunks, which is like small boxes of information. And then it stores them into vector database. So vector database is available on all clouds. It's a special database that stores numerical information. So all the information that you kind of pass to your chatbots, they kind of store it in numerical forms, the one I mentioned in the beginning. So everything is kind of stored in numerical form, in form of numbers. And then those numbers are used whenever you ask another question. Your agent or your bot will go and see in the database like what is the relevant prompt and what is the relevant context. So those contexts are kind of stored in a very specific term, and they kind of see the similarity with those texts and kind of generates a response. So there are different ways how you can query and how you can optimize the response that is generated. I'm going to talk about it in the upcoming slides. But this is the key concept of building any kind of chatbots. You kind of store the information in a database, you query the database, it's extracted from the similarity it has with the relevant information that is stored, and you get a response. Any chatbot works on this concept right now. So this is how it looks like, just to give you a bit more on the technical part. So if any word that you pass, for example, man, woman, king, queen, etc., how they are stored as embeddings, which is kind of a numerical representation of each word. In the beginning, I showed how you store it in the form of tokens. So if you do a word by word token, this is how it's going to be stored. If you do character by character, it's going to be stored. For each character, you'll have a numerical representation. So that's how it works. For example, if you have to search for man and woman, they'll be stored in a visualization that you can see. And when you search for something, it will give a response which is very relevant to it. So that's the key concept. And when all this information is created, it kind of gets stored in a vector database. So you cannot store it in a normal database. Normally, it always gets stored in kind of a vector database, which is designed to store numerical information, and it's very fast. It's super fast. It can be a bit expensive, but it's quite fast. Now comes the concept of fine-tuning your LLM. So you might use and see a lot of LLMs in the market, but they don't work for you as is for your business or production application or for your specific industry. How you have to make them a bit more efficient for you is to fine-tune them. So how you fine-tune is providing a domain-specific or industry-specific knowledge. You might have documents for your marketing, you might have documents for your business. You provide it with that context. That's how it's going to work. And then you enhance its performance. So everything can be done in a way that you want it to do. So I talked about prompt engineering. I want it to answer in a specific way. I will tell that, okay, you are an assistant or you are a CEO, answer in a specific tone. be very friendly, don't be friendly. You can ask it to be how you want it. You can ask it to answer in Cantonese, English, Japanese, any language as well. So you can really customize the styling to it. Now going to the next part, you hear a lot about agents. So I'm going to just touch what is agent and what are the design principles for designing different kind of agents. So you have a user who has any kind of request, and you have LLMs, which are these models. You have OpenAI, you have Gemini, you have Minstrel, you have Meta, you have Llama. So LLM, what will it do? It will plan on what needs to be done. It will use some tools. I'm going to tell you what are the tools, what is the planning. And it will go back to the memory, which is the vector database we just showed. So your task is any user request. LLM is the models that are available in the market, or you can use open source. And then the tools is what are the things that we want the agent to do. And the memory is where it actually, like the vector DB, where it will search for the information. So an example for the agent, I just ask a question, is it the right time to invest in NVIDIA stock? Now there are different subtasks, which is kind of the reasoning that the model will do. It will decide like what actions are needed in which order should they perform the actions. So the actions will be, what is the current price of the stock, what are the latest financial statements, what are the latest news and announcement, and what is the sentimental score, should I buy it or not. So that's kind of the steps normally that happens. And the agent workflow, if I go around it, so you proceed with the task, you collect all the information about the financial, about the stocks, etc. You do a quick data analysis, like based on the previous 1 year, should I buy it or not, and then you generate the output information. So, kind of, I'll not touch all the detail, but I'll give you a quick walkthrough. Normally you don't find it in the market, but there are a lot of design principles behind agent, and these are some of the quick ones. I'll go very quickly on this one. So one is the first one, which is a reflection pattern. Very simple. You have a query, you write an LLM, you ask an LLM, it will create an output for you, and then it will do a quick reflection, is the output correct or not, and then based on the reflected output, it will give you the output response. So that's the first very basic one. Second one is you're using some tools. The tools are your vector database, where if you upload some PDFs, if you upload some documents, that will be stored in vector database. It will look up, it will kind of generate your response and then give you the response. The next one is called React pattern, which is quite interesting because it's reasoning plus actions. So now, for example, I gave you an example of, okay, I have this chatbot, I need the information about should I invest in NVIDIA or not. So for example, if you see the Foodable app, they have now a chatbot where you can ask questions. It's an AI-based bot. How it works is basically it has some information stored already, which is your vector database, but it also has an environment, which is it is searching the internet, or it is searching some information about what's happening in the market right now, what are the news, etc. So that's kind of a mix and match of different things. So it reasons and it takes some action and give you some directions. Yes? Go ahead.
Because it's called RAG, is it based on something coming from reinforcement learning?
Yes. So it is based on that, but RAG is basically you will retrieve some information, you augment it, and then you generate a response. So basically you get a natural language and then you do it. I'm going to go into the reinforcement learning concept, which is how you fine-tune the models. So basically this one is a bit more straightforward. You store information and you generate it, kind of. It's how the LLM works. In the background, it works on neural networks and reinforcement learning. That's what I told you in the beginning. So that's how, if you use like OpenAI, that's how it works in the background. But you don't see it. It's what they do as part of the price they charge you. The next one is also you can use multiple agents. If you have seen, there are some new agents coming in which can help you build applications. So this is the concept they're using. You can kind of build a planner and generate tasks. Like I have 5 tasks to do, help me do these tasks. The agent will do those tasks and give you the response. So it's basically for your planning stuff. The most interesting one, and if you are developers, I hope it doesn't replace us in the coming future, but all clouds are now launching some agent space which kind of generates these kind of multi-agents. So you just say, oh, build me a Flappy Bird game, and they will use a project manager, they'll use a software developer, and they'll use a DevOps agent, and they'll do all the tasks for you, and within 10 seconds you have the game ready. They'll do all the testing for you. So these are called multi-agents, but a lot of people are now using multi-agents to do different AI stuff. Again, I know we are at the AWS event, but all the clouds provide similar solutions in the market. There is Databricks as well, which you can use a lot and is kind of available across clouds. You can take a picture if you want. I have some pros and cons, but I'm not going to the specifics of it. I can share the slide with you a bit later, but I think normally all clouds provide the same solution. It's whichever cloud you're using, you can kind of use the solutions from them. And what is happening right now is all clouds allow you to kind of capture the information or use different models. So if you're using AWS, you can kind of leverage OpenAI's. They are opening doors for each other. Again, on the vector database is a bit more expensive, as I said, but again, all cloud provide their own vector database as well. There are some open source database as well which you can use, which are a bit cheaper, and you can kind of leverage them. You can take a picture. I'm not going to go into the details, but this is an extensive study we did to compare these models. Okay, so quickly on the last topic, I'll take 10 more minutes or 5 more minutes. I just want to give you some technical level details, how we implemented in our solution. So how we are using GenAI solutions. So one is we are building Q&A bots, which you normally see. And the second one is we are automating the document generation. So if you have to fill some information, a lot of filings needs to be done. We are kind of automating all of that. So quickly jumping into one of the architecture diagram. It's not very technical, it's more like a functional diagram. But just to give you a sense of how the overall flow looks like. So you have your input sources and you have your ingestion pipeline. From your ingestion pipeline, you get your raw data and then you kind of transform and extract it. So I have PDFs, I extract all the KPIs from my PDF. And then I run some AI information on top of it, AI services if I want. Then I'll get my transform data. If I go at the bottom, all the transform data is then indexed. I showed you in the beginning, you make it into numeric form. So all the numeric form is indexing. And then there is an index knowledge base which kind of sits in the vector DB. And then you get a search request endpoint. So next time if you ask a question, it will query your search endpoint and then it will call the LLM and you have your front-end interface. Like we showed you, we built a fancy front-end. So you can either do that or you can build a simple chatbot. Similar stuff for automating the document processing. So you have your input documents, you extract all the raw information from it. From all the raw information, you extract the key KPIs. So that's what we did in the demo that I showed you. We extracted all the key KPIs, what are the numbers, what are the metrics. And then we use LLM to kind of sit on top and generate a vector database on top of it. And then the output KPIs are shown to the users. Just one touch on the technical architecture, not going again into all the details. You have this interface, you have the LLM services, and this is quite straightforward to build. I talked about a lot on document extraction, and I just wanted to give some tips and tricks for people. So when you extract from documents, something to note is the text could be in any form. It could be in straight paragraphs, it could be in chunks of different blocks. So to look at it, when we extracted KPIs, we not only extracted from the paragraph that you have, but also from the visual. So if you are extracting document, make sure you extract all the information from the visuals. And when we built this database, we found there's a lot of information which was irrelevant. So make sure that you remove all the irrelevant information, and that's where the prompt engineering helps. So the one we built, we kind of gave it specific information in the prompts, and you can do it too, where you give very specific guidelines on what information you actually need and how it should store it. And you can even give a question and answer. If you know how the users are going to ask questions, you can really give it very specific information, and this will help you get the best response from your chatbot. So a bit more technical stuff, but if you deploy production application, this will improve your accuracy 20% from what you have. So again, not going into all the details, I can share this with you, but it's quite interesting to have a note of this. One thing on the fine tuning, just last 2 slides, bear with me if you can. I wanted to touch about fine tuning, so you can fine tune your models as well. And there's a lot of stuff you can do to fine tune your models. There is supervised learning, as you were talking about, reinforcement learning. This is where it comes. They already do by default in the models, but you can add an extra layer on top of it. Again, not going into the technical bits, but I want to give you how you can add reinforcement learning, and this is what mostly we do. If you build chatbots, you have an option, you can use this library. It's open source, it's called Ardila interface, so you don't have to build it, it's already available. And what it provides you 2 ways of collecting feedback. And you can say you want to rate your response 1 to 5. You can also give a text-based response, or you can say just give a response. I like the response, I didn't like the response. And based on this, you can retrain your model. So this is the layer of human feedback. And this is mostly useful for open-ended answers. You create a chatbot for, say, content generation. For your marketing, you need to generate content. But it's very open source. You cannot automate those kind of testing. So for those reasons, these kind of suggestions or human feedback is very important. What to look at, last 2 slides I promise. What to look at when you are running tests. So basically, when you build models, you really don't know what should you look at. So you have to see the retrieval effectiveness, like how good your information is actually that is responded. What is the relevance of response? I asked about the weather today and it gave me information, or today was the sports match was good, so that's not really relevant. And coherence of generated response, so is it logically connected or not? That's very important. And how updated is the response? Like I asked, what's the right time to buy NVIDIA stock if it gives me price from 5 years ago? Not really helpful. So when we run our production models, we kind of see these kind of metrics to evaluate the model performance. One is answer relevancy, how relevant is the answer. Second is correctness, is it correct or not. Third is it hallucinating? That's very important. Fourth is contextual relevancy, how relevant is my content. Fifth is responsible metrics, is it doing discrimination or hate against anyone? And then task-specific metrics, so quite interesting. So always be, that's something that is very important. So your model should be very ethical and responsible in the response they generate. They should not have hate or discrimination. So you can always make sure you don't have any unsafe, open-ended areas in your models. You can always fine-tune it with prompt training. If you build something, I ask a specific question, and it's not really okay. If you, for example, build an HR bot and I ask something negative or hatred about the company, the model should say, I'm not provisioned to respond to that. Second last slide to be honest. So some of the do's and don'ts. This is very interesting for scaling your application. We build production level application and this is what we follow, so I highly recommend it. So you need to optimize for reliability, scalability and security. Make sure you have data governance in place. Make sure you automate your deployments and make sure you have continuous testing. So you need to store what's happening. Scale with your business, define a roadmap. I think that's one of the reasons that most of the solutions don't reach to production size, because you don't have a roadmap of how it will look like 1 year down the line. And make sure it's adopted by everyone in your company. You don't just build a bot and no one is using it, so make sure it's being used. Monitor and track it. Make sure you have a mechanism to see what your model is performing in terms of generating responses for every query. That's the key. Track your usage for KPIs and use FinOps, so cost can really scale up very high, so make sure you trace the cost as well. Some of the don'ts, I would say, don't rely on manual processes, make sure you automate as much as possible. Minimize the impact of scalability, so it should not impact your systems, etc. Make sure you have monitoring. Lack of monitoring is a complete no-no. And underestimating scaling cost. Cost is most important. You can end up with if you're using cloud resources, be it any cloud, you can end up with a daily cost of 10,000 euros. Happened with one of our clients, and they were so shocked. They came in the next morning, and the cloud usage was so high just because someone forgot to shut it off. So that's really happening with luxury brands. So make sure you have limits, budgets set as alerts. You can even get notification. And in case you want to have MLOps architecture, that's something which you can put in. You have your model layer on top, you have your dev environment, you have your pre-prod environment, and you have your production environment. Normally, you might have one environment to begin with when you're doing POC, but that shouldn't be the case. You should always think about the future. I promise this is the last time. Q&A, if you have any questions, happy to answer them. Yes, please.
I understand there are different perspectives to evaluate the performance of a model, right? Is there a perspective that you would say more important, like the weighting is a little stronger than the other? I remember there are 6 areas.
Yes, so I think all of them are quite important, but the first one is correctness and answer relevancy. Like if you ask me a question about what's the weather today, I should tell you the weather at least. At least it should be relevant and it should be correct. So I shouldn't tell you today is Monday, so that shouldn't be the answer. So that's the first one. Normally hallucination always occurs. As I said, LLM models are not 100% correct and you cannot fine tune them to be 100% correct. So every time we build a production model for some clients, we always tell them that, okay, there is, I would say 5 to 6% chance, 5 to 10% chance of hallucination, because we don't train on all the edge cases. You don't even know all the edge cases. That's why you need to monitor your queries every day to see what kind of response it's generating. Then only you can have a perfect system. But I would say the first two are the most important one. Hallucination, we know it exists and it is going to continue to exist. So there is a buffer of 5 to 10% on the model performance always. The demo I showed in the beginning, it's accurate to around 90%. We cannot confirm that it would extract every information first from the document. They are not always perfect. We are feeding 10,000 documents. No one can manually read and check if it extracted all information. So for me, the first two are the most important one, and even for the client, the answer should be relevant and correct. Sometimes you ask, okay, when was the company founded? It won't give the right answer if the information is not correctly present. But still it should be, they will accept, at least for our client, they will only accept it is relevant or correct information. If it hallucinates on some of the numbers and figures, they are still okay, because that's the limitation of LLM right now. In future they might be perfect, but at least the first two are the most responsible. Oh yes.
So what you mentioned, you try to build an AI model for your client. So that is, so how can I understand? Is it like you do some fine tuning based on the ChatGPT, DeepSeek, or you just build from scratch?
We build from scratch. So the one example I showed in the beginning, so the use case was mostly our client paid 30 people to manually read those 10,000 documents last year. They spent 300K USD just for them to manually read and fill all the information that is extracted from those documents in an Excel. And they paid so many people just to go through all the documents, get the information, fill in Excel, so that they can build charts or visuals on those Excel. And this year they said, oh, instead of paying them, since we are going to get these 10,000 documents every year, those are documents generated by governments or users. And they said, okay, let's build an AI bot and then let's do it. So they asked us, can you do it? And we said yes, and that's why we built it for them. So normally in my slide of do's and don'ts, I said scale with the business, which is the second point on the left side. Define a roadmap. So most of the clients we work with, every client is talking about AI. All of you are here because you heard AI somewhere. Same is the case with clients. They don't know exactly what it is, but they have some stuff. Basically, where to start, if I tell you in a more simpler way. You are doing a lot of daily tasks today in your company, or which are very much manual, and you're paying someone to do it. Can you replace it with something more automated? For example, reading documents, etc. Can you build an agent like this? Can you use cloud services to build an agent? So all clouds provided, you can build a simple thing. It simplifies your work. Normally, in our day-to-day life, everyone is using ChatGPT or DeepSeek or something to write emails or to help you in your day-to-day life, or to read documents, summarize information, even like social media posts. So that's how the client normally asks us what they can do. We define a roadmap for them. We define use cases based on what data they have, and then we build on top of it.
Like nowadays, like Lewis cloud companies like Alibaba or
Yes.
I'm not sure AWS, they also have provide some like models.
Yes.
And then basically it sounds like you can fine tuning a model
Yes.
and for a specific user case.
Yes.
So if we compare that way to do a development, or like you mentioned that you build from scratch, like the development cycle will be different.
So when we build these use cases, we use those same models, but we train them on our data. We ask them not to use the information they already know or not to search on the internet. They are trained in a specific way, they have the logical reasoning, they have the thinking capabilities. We just say, okay, this is my company's 10,000 document, just train on it. Like you don't answer anything outside it, you just know this information. People are going to ask you questions, you just answer on top of it. So that's the way we do, and that's the way everyone does. You don't build the model from scratch, you use the models, but you build like interface and solutions, which I just showed you, build multi-agents, etc.
But once the company provide the data to you, do they, all those data are in their original format?
Yes, original
No
format.
need to do some like data
So
processing.
we do data processing, and that's why in the functional architecture which I showed, you had the first step of transformation and KPI extraction. So even on the functional document, you have transformation. So basically, data can exist in any format. We transform the data a bit, and then we use it in the format that is readable to the LLM. So what's most important to have a data in the right format? If it's not in the right format, or garbage in is garbage out, so that's something you need to be doing.
Unstructured data like video.
Yes, all of them work. Yes, yes. So everything works. There are video models for AWS, the video models for GCP. You can use them directly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I want to know more about how to extract the image and the chart. Like are you using some embedding or
Yes.
directly extract the image?
So normally we use OCR extraction. If I go back to the image page, maybe I'll have a slide for it. So there is a lot of tools available for OCR. I don't know if I have it in this slide or... No, I don't have it in the slide, but you have a lot of tools available for OCR services. OCR is specifically providing you services for extracting information from images. So you can use, I think AI search is one of them, vector AI search, but it is combined with Azure Document Intelligence. So each cloud normally have their own service for extracting information from images. You don't have to build it from scratch. You can only train it with a better prompt, but they all provide you services. So same for your case, all the models provide you everything nowadays. You don't have to do much, you just give your documents or the data in the right format, it will give you information. Same for extracting information from image videos, it's all available in the service that you use. So Azure, it's Document Intelligence, I know they have for AWS as well. I might not remember the name, but I have a separate slide I can show you separately in my overall document, but they have a service for it as well. So it's all natively available. Yes. Yes.
I want to know more about, like, let's say you want to create a model that is for finance, for example, or future or whatever. Like, how do you choose the base model? Because like you can start from scratch, or you can use an existing model and then train on your existing model. So my question is just like, how would you select the base model?
So it's an interesting question. It again depends on how much are you willing to pay. What's your capacity to pay? That's the most important. I would say, how much are you willing to pay? That's the first question. If you see in the market, I have a separate study as well, we have done as well, how each model performs for a specific use case. For example, and I think you should read it, it's available online. You can compare different models for different reasons. So if you have a specific task based on what you have, there is a specific model which outperforms other models. For example, I can tell you a very good example. If you have to generate social media content, which model do you think is the best one? anyone knows. I think not many might know, but Claude, if you use Claude, that's the best model for generating social media content. So if you have to make LinkedIn posts, if you have to make your Instagram post, and you needed to write the caption for you, the best one is by Claude. They did a research comparing all the different models which generates better results, and they perform it like way ahead. So I would recommend you to read those papers. There are a lot of white papers published for different kind of tasks. If you have to do automation, there is different kind. If you have to do coding, there is different kind. And you can use the one based on that information. It's available online. People have done research in MIT. Yes, go ahead.
Because like as you mentioned, like domain-specific model. Because in general, LLMs really has to practice like the generic,
Yes.
and then like you have Claude, which is a little bit more specific with some domain knowledge. But like, if for example we want to evaluate an answer from LLM, like very powerful, is it because as far as I know, if you build even a much smaller model, which is very like.
Yes.
If you train a lot of data, it actually can outperform.
Outperform, yes. So now people are shifting because there is concept of very large scale models. People are shifting to very small scale models because they are much cheaper and you can train it everything on the data that you have. So they are very, very cheap. And a lot of companies are actually moving to it, like very small large language models, because you train based on all the context you have, and it kind of outperforms those large language models actually. So I would again invite you to, it's a bit out of this scope of this session, but there is a lot of white papers developed to compare if you want to build advanced agentic systems, which kind of models you have to use while making sure your cost is very low. Any more questions?
Yes, actually. How do you, because like we are training models, but can the model always like learn by itself?
Yes. So if you have, as I mentioned, you have the reinforcement learning mechanism. That's very important. You have to have a feedback loop. That's a human feedback. But then that's like the human layer, which is for open-ended tasks, because open-ended task model cannot evaluate. So there is another concept where you generate an output from one model and you ask another model to kind of evaluate the score and give it a score. And that's what we did on our example, where we use one model, you can say we use OpenAI to kind of test it, and then we use Llama model to kind of validate if it's correct or not based on the data. And that's where you have like a validation there, but it's only for where you know what's the output look like. For open-ended questions like, okay, write me a LinkedIn post. It's very open-ended. How do I compare? So for that reason, you need to have that feedback, human feedback, where you say, did you like the response? Did you not like the response? So if the human says, I did not like the response, it will go back and train and will make sure it doesn't provide the same kind of answer. So there is again, a lot of research done on it. You can read white papers on how to evaluate models and how should I put the evaluation in my feedback system. Okay, thank you guys. If you have,
Some
yes.
follow your question. Maybe user feedback and the fact check, because the reference from the data or from the website or the channel, it's the evidence base, and then the user their feedback like or dislike is just a preferable answer. Or
Yes,
like
that's correct. That's absolutely correct.
So if you want to see the fact, is it true or not, have to based on some evidence.
Yes.
So that I'm not a computer scientist
Yes.
or researcher.
So I think that's the first layer of where you have LLM judge, where you say, okay, the model automatically tests your response. But then for these open-ended, you are absolutely right. It's just my personal preference. I like the response. So if I like it, it's not sure you have to like it too. Tomorrow it shows you the same answer and you say I don't like it. So it's absolutely correct. So.
And how to do that? If you know
Yes.
in the implementation that point of view.
Yes.
I don't know how to do.
Yes. So that's very advanced layer. So what you do is you don't base it on one response. Normally when the training is done, is when you retrain your model, it's not because, okay, you said so I'm going to do it. It takes into account 10,000 people responses because the queries are done every day. So if a huge number of audience says they're not happy with or satisfied with the response, then the model will actually retrain. So it's based on the number of people or number of audience that says, if 100 people say it's good, 5 people say it's not good, so it will not retrain because that's the minority audience. Yes.
But actually, that so-called answer can also write as well, because
yes.
some research we just want the user to feedback us
yes.
to comment that service, is it good or not, how we can improve our service, something like that. So
that's correct.
It's kind of
yes.
Emotion.
Yes.
That type of no right or wrong that answer.
Yes.
So it's just want to.
Yeah, for sure. So normally it depends on, if you are building tomorrow, it depends on how you want your model to be retrained. 90% of the time they don't even retrain it. They say, oh, it's good. Okay, it's providing a good response. I don't care what people think. So they don't even have the feedback mechanism. But if you see more advanced systems, very advanced bots, they have these feedback mechanism, and that's why we showed some metrics which are relevant. So normally when you build something, you kind of define say valuation for yourself that okay, this criteria we go ahead, this criteria we're not okay with. So that's kind of defined by you as the business owner, and then you choose what you choose. Sorry guys, we are running out of time. It's your Friday night. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be right here sitting somewhere. I'll pass the floor to Alex. Thank you so much for listening with so much patience. I hope you learned something.
Thank you, Siddharth. So I think we're also staying behind, right? Yeah. So if you have any more questions, since we also have some teaser, and so I think Siddharth will stay behind, so you can feel free to ask him further. Still, we originally have planned another section, so I will be quick because you can see as a user group leader, I have to talk here, which means that we are running out of speakers. So anyway, still I will share a bit about more technical stuff, but I hope to link it up with what Siddharth has shared. I'm going to share about AWS Amplify from Ops to GitOps. So, very quick survey, not to take much time. So, have anyone of you used the AWS Amplify? Anyone? So there's few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so the rest of you, not sure if you're not developers or if you're not using Amplify before. So I clearly know is the majority here. So I'm not sure which version you used. So I think most of you may be using Gen 1 or Gen 2. How many of you using Gen 2 already?
I tried Gen 2.
Yeah, you tried Gen 2. So yes, today I'm more focused on Gen 2. But in case you are also a developer, but you haven't used the AWS Amplify ever, I hope to show you the pros of AWS Amplify. And I think in this era, most of us use AI to write code. I'm not sure if anyone of you still insists not to use AI at all. For me, I already surrender. I just give everything to AI to help me to write every code already. So I can see AWS Amplify can help you to work with your workflow or your way to write code, whatever way you say it, you name it. And so I will skip to more about the introduction of AWS Amplify. So this is the console of AWS Amplify. I think it's quite friendly, more beginner friendly than other AWS services like EC2 or S3. You can see the button is larger, the white space is smaller, there are more white spaces. If you've ever heard about Vercel, Firebase, actually AWS Amplify is a competitor to these services. It's combined hosting, backend, and also they also provide UI libraries. I think that UI library is not that pretty, but at least you can make your application more like AWS. I don't know why they have to do it. If you use the Amplify UI, your application is just like the AWS console. Anyway, but if you need to prototype something very quick, this Amplify ecosystem can do everything for you. Front-end, back-end, libraries, everything you need. So it also supports multi-platform, React, Flutter, React Native, Swift, Kotlin. So most of the front ends that you will require to build your system, they already provide you the SDK. I would say that the support to React is the most supported one. For Flutter and React Native, it's just like doing bare minimal functionalities. If you are a React developer, then the library that they provided, you can see that you just don't need to think. You just no brain and then just write your code. So be careful that they have Gen 1 and Gen 2. Gen 1 is a nightmare for most developers, I would say, because here is AWS user group, I can say anything I want. Gen 1 is horrible, and I think I have some PTSD with Gen 1. The reason why I use AWS Amplify is that during the last meetup or some meeting with Richard, he told me that Gen 2 is actually different. I don't really believe it, so I spent a few weekends to try Gen 2, and I can see the huge difference here. For Gen 1, it's a CLI-driven development, and then everything is GraphQL. It's fine. GraphQL is more interesting to some developers, and they have some commands. But for Gen 2, it's totally code first, and then it's integrated with CDK. For Gen 1, you will search some documentation online, and if you can see the Amplify command line or Amplify folder, which means that you're looking at Gen 1 documentations. My nightmare was that I can see the Amplify folder, but I'm not so sure which files I should ignore and which file I should be using. And it ends up that if I put down the project for a few weeks, I couldn't even start the project anymore, because maybe I have deleted some resources or I have accidentally removed some files. So it's totally a nightmare. And the experience is like this. There's a developer 1 and developer 2. Usually 1 and 2 is also is myself, because I have my MacBook, I have my desktop PC, I have my home PC, and then if I want to do some changes at home, it is almost impossible. And then you have git config, you have some local state, and then it ends up you will not use Amplify anymore. And there's also one more bonus point is connector. There's user pools, identity pools. You can see my English is not my native languages, and I really couldn't distinguish what's user pool, and then they have a lengthy documentation, and then you have to read it, and then you use it. Anyway, so don't use Gen 1 at all. And usually this is my experience in connector. So an error, but you don't know why, and then you post it to scalable, you will be demoted, and usually sometimes later you couldn't post any pattern anymore. Anyway, so and then Gen 2. So Gen 2 is a redundant hope. So if you have been using Amplify and using Gen 1 only, Gen 2 is a totally different story. Why it's actually new? Because it is TypeScript first. So they define infrastructure as code. They have an easier way than CDK. They have some bootstrapping that you can just use their like create Amplify app, and then you can use the infrastructure right away. They have a concept called sense process. I will talk about this later. And then everything is Git-centric. So which means that you can version your infrastructure, your backend. And the best thing about Git-centric and code first is that my code only writes code. It couldn't control my AWS console. So if I can pass the code to Code or Gemini CLI, whatever code agent you're using, they actually build your whole infrastructure for you. So this is the brief architecture. You can see my PowerPoint. There are not enough space for the AWS service down here, but you just don't really need to take care about this, because what you have to see is the TypeScript code, and there's an Amplify backend.ts to define everything for your architecture. So I will walk through some key features because time is limited, and I will just walk through it very quickly. So this is one of the most amazing parts. I was struggling for authentication always, because I can either use my own custom build backend, I can use Auth0, I don't want to use connector, and what can I do? And here they allow you to make your authentication super easy. So you can see, okay, what URL you prefer to log in with, email. They have built in lots of external providers. You just need to provide client ID and secret. They also have the email sending configuration. Of course, they connected to Amazon SES, but then you don't really have to think about, okay, SMTP or the 2FA flow. They also provide you the user attributes. For this one, I have been using some other user authentication provider. User attributes actually is quite hard for them to do, I don't know why, but then they provide you very easy way to define custom attributes. And they also provide you the groups that you have your flexibility to define everything in just like 20 lines of code. And then the best thing is that after you have written down this configuration, you just click deploy, or you just type the command. It can create every AWS resources that is required, and then it builds the backend for you. Also, for the database, I've been using DynamoDB to save my money. I don't really like DynamoDB because you have to click every collection, or you have to select, okay, whether it is right on demand or what global, whatever secondary index. It's really difficult for me because I come from relational DB background. I use MySQL, I use PostgreSQL. But then it turns out it's super easy to define here because it's used the schema to define your model, which I would say even if you use SQL to define a database or you define a table, eventually you will also do something close to ORM. You will do some modeling in your code base. You will do DT load. So here is a chance that you define a database here. You also define the authorization. You can define that, okay, whether this model can be used by anyone or even field-based authorization. I have met several file-based developers. They build it very quickly, and they also build security loopholes. Usually, they just public everything, or if you are authenticated, you can read and write everything. But here, they take a very extra care that you define the data model and the permission here. So it is a better way that you don't miss the chance, you don't miss the way you can protect your data. And it's super easy to just define, like, okay, only owner can read this model. And then after that, you just gather everything together, and then there's one command, npx ampx sandbox. So it will create a personal sandbox for you. What does it mean? So if imagine that you have several developers in your company. For me, I usually have several cloud code agents running in the background. So they're doing different jobs. But maybe some of those, they want to make changes to the infrastructure or make more DynamoDB tables. If you're working in one AWS account, it is impossible for you to do it. But for Sandbox here, it will create a whole set of different, infrastructure, whole set of link. You can see here, they have an AppSync API, which is unique for each sandbox. So there's no conflict among the sandboxes. And you can manage all the sandboxes here. Right now, this screen only have one sandbox. You can just delete anyone, and then all the resources will be freed up, and then you don't really have to cost your AWS account. So they have isolated cloud formation indeed. So in the background, actually, they try to extract another layer of CDK. So you can see there's the code that I have shown is not like CDK, but in the behind the scenes, they're actually producing CDK codes, and then CDK turns out to become cloud formation. And that's why if you don't see this sandbox anymore, you just delete it. The cloud formation is deleting, and then all the resources will be free. And they are also real AWS resources. There's no way that you can say, okay, I make it work in my sandbox, and then suddenly when I go to production, the things change. You can see the things. If you want to change the things, you can use the AWS branch, and then you can do some things to save your cost. But if you don't do this, everything will be the same between sandbox and production. And that's why if you have several developers or even you have production, for the production, they are doing the CI/CD automatically, just like Firebase or Virtual. And then you push it, and then they will try to deploy it. And at the same time, you're doing new features, so you do sandbox, and it will also deploy the new resources. For me, I'm not really quite familiar with CDK. I usually use Terraform. But since I use Amplify, and Cloud Code help me to write everything here, and I can use several Cloud Code to see which one do the right job, and then if that successfully deployed, I will merge the main, and I can see my main branch will get the new resources. It's super friendly, super GenAI friendly. And this is the cloud formation resources you can see behind the scenes. So as I mentioned, since it is integrated with CDK, if the built-in define function provided by Amplify could not meet your demand, you can actually create any resources here. So S3 bucket maybe is not a good example because they also have a storage. So I have a more advanced example, like if you have a SQS, SNS, or you have some custom Lambda, you can integrate together within one project source code. So you can combine the benefits of Amplify and CDK altogether. And if you have some developer who do not really like CDK, you can force them to use it by this chance. So to keep everything's infrastructure as code. And they also provide the type safe data layer. As I mentioned, that you will eventually do something like ORM or DTO in your source code. So it combines two things together. On the right-hand side is the data model that I have just shown. And then in your front end, you can actually import the schema. And they also provide generate client. You don't need to define open API, and then you export the Swagger, and then sometimes the backend developer didn't update the Swagger, and then it's out of sync. It will never happen again. The two sides will be synchronized, and then it is also type safe. You can see if there are some unknown field type here, it will have a compile time error. And finally, I think this is the most important part that I kept mentioning, is that sometimes I wonder that will there be any more new frameworks? Because our GenAI only know the frameworks in the past. Of course, there's a Context 7 MCP. I'm not sure if you ever used it, Context 7. That it will always fetch the latest documentation. But what's more better is that AWS Amplify, they have defined the official Amplify rules. They provide a markdown guides for Q developer, which means that I can just borrow those markdown to other code agents, like Cloud Code or Gemini CLI. And then you can use this markdown to ensure that your code agent can do the best practice of Amplify. So just like this example, if you use Q developer or use any code agent like ChatGPT, if you ask them to create a schema for Amplify Gen 2, it will create a very simple schema for you, because it might know the syntax, but it doesn't know the great thing about Amplify. If you use the Amplify rules that they have defined, they have actually a very lengthy rules to define the relationship or the best practice of permission. They will create a more sophisticated with the authorization, with the specific types that amplifiers can use. So it's really GenAI friendly. If I can see that none of other platforms are providing this, probably because AWS want to promote the QCLI, but that's a good thing. So in summary, I can see that for Gen 2, it's really end-to-end type safe. You have real AWS environment to use. Of course, you have real money to spend. And there's CDK integrated. And for database, it's not necessarily DynamoDB. They also recently support RDS Postgres, or even if you have an existing schema, they can import the schema from your existing database. Behind the scenes, they also use commit tool, but you don't really have to deal with the user pool of identity pools. And it is Git friendly. I couldn't see any other frameworks like Firebase can do this. And usually when I meet people, they only use Firebase. Their application usually have many bugs. Anyway, so key takeaways, it is TypeScript friendly, and the benefits is all these I mentioned. I still have some frustration, to be honest. The documentation is, they have a rich documentation. They tell you many things. But the things that you want to do usually missing. Okay, they tell you many things, how to integrate OpenSearch, how to integrate some caching, really advanced. But I just want to do very simple thing. They didn't mention how to do it. Luckily, since we have Cloud Cook, you ask Cloud Cook, maybe they can, Cloud Cook can tell you how. And also performance tuning. I couldn't really find many performance tuning discussion in the Amplify, mostly because everything they're using are AWS services. So if you want to tune it, you go back to the AWS services. But since it is too magical, sometimes I don't know what service they have used. They create everything for me, so how do I tune? And for Lambda, local testing is still a difficult problem. If you just want to change one line of code, they have a watch mode. They will automatically rebuild the infrastructure. But then it takes time, like 1 minute. So you just want to add one console log, 1 minute, and another console 2 minutes. And then, so that's why you still have difficulties in Lambda local testing. I would say it shares the same frustration if you are doing Lambda development. So even if you are not using Amplify, but you are using Lambda, you will still face this problem. So if you really want to try it, I would say you can start a quick start. So it's just like npm create Amplify. And then use GenAI, really, because everything is written in the code. If you have any idea, create Amplify, and then tell Cloud Cook, and then just npmx samples, you can see whether it works or not. It already have hosting, already have everything here. And I hope that I will write more blogs about this and hope to contribute more. And I think that's it. And very quick. By the way, this slide is also created by Cloud Cook. Anyway. Yeah. So if you want to talk about some white coding things, I will be more happy to share. And so I think this is my quick sharing. Yeah. So if you don't want to get frustration again and then go to GitOps, npm git, try this. And I think this is my quick sharing. So let me turn back to my user group slide. So I hope you enjoyed the user group sharing today. And I think we have to present a souvenir to, since I'm the U leader, I don't need souvenir, but Siddharth has given a very excellent presentation. We have a souvenir for him. Yes. So anyone can help me.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening at this hour. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. So we have maybe take the photo time outside because I can see some of them are sitting outside.